Unveiling Louisiana's Sinister Jail, discover the 13 spine-chilling secrets of its cursed past. Jessica wiped the counter of the diner, the familiar sound of the cloth against the slick surface offering a sensation of calm. But this calm was misleading. Outside, the old streets of New Orleans thrummed with life, yet a darker energy loomed, like shadows stretching beneath the flickering diner lights. Tonight was not an ordinary night. The air grew thick as she heard the bell jingle above the door. A figure entered, his face scrunched like an old leather wallet. He had haunting eyes, eyes that seemed to pull at shadows. With heavy boots, he stepped forward, and Jessica felt an icy shiver. "You heard the stories about the jail, right?" he rasped, leaning against the counter. Jessica nodded, her heart drumming in her chest as the diner felt smaller, the air tighter. The tales of the notorious jail were infamous, whispered in frantic breaths among the locals. Tales of terror that seeped through the very foundation of the city. 13 secrets it holds, the last of 'em waking up, he warned, almost to himself. "They're watching. They'll want your kids." Her breath hitched as the man spoke about the wails of the imprisoned souls that still roamed outside the old brick walls, their restless spirits yearning for freedom. He leaned in closer, voice a mere whisper, "If you hear them cry, your time's running out." A heavy dread settled in the pit of Jessica's stomach, but she brushed it off. Just a crazy man, she told herself. But later that night, as she served coffee to a few late-night patrons, her phone buzzed, cutting through the idle chatter like glass breaking. An unknown number. Frantic breaths on the other end. "Your children, they're in danger." The urgency of the warning sent chills racing down her spine. She hung up, heart pounding. Suddenly, the night felt different. Jessica found her kids having dinner, their faces pale, staring at the walls as if someone else was in the room with them. Something strange was swirling in the air, whispering shadows that hovered just beyond her reach. The moment they mentioned the jail's ghost stories, a weight settled on her chest. Something beyond her imagination was happening. "I drew a picture, Mama." Her youngest, Lizzie, exclaimed, proudly holding up a crayon drawing. It was the jail towering, ominous, and surrounded by haunting faces. Jessica felt sick. The colors were so dark, so cold. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jessica tucked her kids into bed later that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. A chill filled the room, deeper than the air outside. The shadows shifted unnaturally, flickering like dancers to a ghostly tune. Was she imagining things? The unease crept deeper, gnawing at her sanity. With every creak of the wood beneath her feet, a sense of urgency clawed at her insides, pushing her towards the jail. She felt bound by something dark, something that linked her to the horrors buried in that corrupted historic past. Was her neighbor, the one who always seemed kind, actually hiding something? A sudden slam of the front door jolted her from her thoughts. Rushing to the living room, her heart plummeted as the reality hit. Her children were gone. "Kids!" she called out, a trembling desperation spilling from her lips. The oppressive silence seized her, darkness swallowing her. As the lights flickered erratically, her phone rang again. With dread, Jessica checked the caller ID. Her children's names flashed ominously. Panic gripped her as the voice on the line whispered, "Come find us before it's too late." The gravity of the situation consumed her, the line between trust and terror had crumbled. Whatever was in that prison was coming for her family, and time was running out. Jessica's pulse quickened, each frantic beat echoing in her ears. She stood frozen, the weight of her fear colliding with the stark reality: her children had vanished. The walls felt as if they were closing in, suffocating her hopes. "Where are you?" she whispered into the murky silence, not even sure if she could hear her own voice. She glanced around the living room, desperate for a sign, something to guide her. The shadows lurked like hidden predators, each corner of the room warped and unrecognizable. With trembling hands, she snatched up her keys and bolted for the door. The streetlights outside flickered ominously as if they too sensed the impending horror. As she stepped outside, the cool night air bit at her skin, a cold reminder of the urgency gripping her. The world felt distorted, the familiar streets now warped into a maze of dread. She could barely focus, her mind racing through every whispered tale of the jail she had ever heard. The stories haunted her: the tortured souls, the relentless screams, the fates worse than death, all echoing in her memory. Jessica rushed down the street, propelled forward by an instinct she couldn't quite place. To the left, the imposing structure of the jail loomed, its brick walls darker than the night around it. It was as if it were swallowing the light, pulling everything into its voracious depths. The warnings from the man at the diner played over and over in her head: "They're watching." She approached the jail, heart pounding like a war drum, the very air thick with something malevolent. As she stepped through the rusted gate, she felt it: a pulse, a rhythm of despair that vibrated through the ground beneath her feet. The screams that once felt so distant now clamored loudly in her mind, clawing at her sanity. "Kids!" she screamed, her voice reverberating off the walls, a desperate cry that fell flat in the heavy silence. The echoes answered her but gave no direction. She fumbled through the exterior yard, blinded by the dim light of a flickering bulb, her imagination racing with each snap of twigs beneath her boots. Then, just ahead, something emerged from the shadows: a figure, blurred and flickering like a dying candle flame. Jessica's heart raced as she stumbled back, panic clouding her thoughts. Was it real? Or a trick of her mind? "Help us!" the whisper drifted towards her, chilling her bones. It was a voice she recognized: Lizzie. Desperate, Jessica lunged forward, guided by a maternal instinct stronger than the horror encroaching around her. The figure vanished into the darkness, replaced by whispers that grew louder, competing for her attention. "Run, don't stay, it wants you!" Terror gripped at her heart like icy fingers. She spun around, adrenaline fueling her, but the shadows had thickened, twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach for her. "Where are you?" she sobbed, fear spilling from her lips as the shadows danced and played tricks on her senses. Footsteps echoed behind her, heavy and methodical, sending a jolt of dread shooting through her spine. It wasn't just her children's voices anymore, there were others: whispers of souls trapped in torment, cries of pain mingling with her anguish. Suddenly, her phone vibrated once more. She fumbled for it, breath held tight in her chest. A text blinked on the screen: "Sinister and cold, you shouldn't have come here. They are hungry." Fear gripped her, tightening like a noose. She was no longer just looking for her children. She was now a target. The night had teeth, and it was hungry for her. In that split second of realization, a decision flickered to life. Jessica had to delve deeper, to confront whatever awaited her in that cursed place. With resolve locking her knees, she moved toward the prison's entrance, each step echoing her fear yet pulling her closer to a truth she didn't fully understand. Inside, the whispers grew cacophonous, swirling around her like a storm. But one truth remained: if she was to find her children, she would have to face the darkest secret of all. The next whisper hung in the air, drenched in malevolence: "They're here and they're waiting for you." What awaited her inside the walls of that cursed jail? The heavy door creaked open as Jessica stepped inside the prison. Caution vanished like smoke in the wind, there was no turning back now. She felt invisible eyes upon her, lurking just beyond the edges of sanity. Each footfall echoed against the cold, damp walls, threatening to awaken whatever haunted these corridors. "Stay close," a voice hissed from the shadows, sending a wave of terror washing over her. Was that Lizzie's voice? Jessica strained to hear, her heart hammering against her ribcage. The walls seemed to bend and twist, the dim light barely piercing the darkness that clung to every corner like a thick fog. "Lizzie!" she called out, her voice cracking. Silence swallowed her words, leaving only the unsettling sound of her own breath. Her eyes darted around, searching for shapes in the murky depths. Over here the whisper came again, softer this time, like a ghostly breeze brushing past her ear. Jessica's pulse quickened as she followed the sound, each step drawing her deeper into the belly of the beast. The corridor widened into a small room filled with dusty furniture covered in white sheets, as if holding on to the memories of lives that once thrived here. A chill swept through, a premonition that something lay hidden beneath the veil of dust. Suddenly, there was movement. Out of the corner of her eye, Jessica spotted a figure darting behind a broken chair. "Come back," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her tone as a pit formed in her stomach. The shadows quivered, sending a wave of dread coursing through her. The air shifted, carrying a putrid smell that ignited her gag reflex, a mix of decay and despair. She stumbled back, but the voice called her again, now firm and direct. "Mom! Please!" Without hesitation, Jessica lunged towards the sound. It was unmistakably Lizzie, her child's voice brushing against the edge of hope, igniting a flicker of determination. The shadows twisted and writhed as she stepped forward, almost as if they were trying to pull her back into the darkness. Jessica reached the corner, her breath caught in her throat as she came face to face with a barred door. Behind it, Lizzie stood wide-eyed, arms stretched through the gaps, desperately reaching for her mother's hand. "Lizzie!" Jessica gasped as she fumbled with the rusted lock, panic bubbling inside her. "Mom!" It won't open. Lizzie's voice trembled, dark glimmers of fear threading through her words. "You have to go, they're coming." A sudden crash echoed through the corridor, shaking the very ground beneath her feet. Jessica's heart raced as she turned to find the source, but the shadows were alive now, swirling and gathering at the entrance, their intent clear and malevolent. The whispers grew louder, a disturbing choir mocking her desperation. "Join us," they chanted, voices merging into a terrifying symphony. "Stay forever." Jessica's breath quickened, every instinct screaming at her to flee. But Lizzie's terrified eyes held her in place. She turned back to the door, frantically shoving against it. "Hold on, I'm almost there." With a final flick of the lock, the door creaked open. Jessica grabbed Lizzie's hand, but the moment of relief was short-lived. A shadow darted out from the dark, faster than her eye could follow, wrapping around Jessica's ankle like a vice, dragging her backward into the abyss. "Mom!" Lizzie screamed, her cries tearing through the oppressive silence as Jessica's grip slipped away. The voices surged, drowning her thoughts in a maddening cacophony. As she was pulled deeper into the shadows, Jessica felt a chill creep into her bones, a realization that she may never escape. The last glimpse she had was of her daughter, the doorway of safety mere inches away. Then everything faded into darkness. Was this the end? The darkness roared, and within it, a question lingered: what happens when all hope is lost? Jessica struggled against the overpowering weight of despair, fighting to understand the true nature of what lurked in the jail. But resistance felt futile. She could sense their hunger all around her, a dreadful invitation to join their eternal nightmare. A flicker of light erupted from somewhere deep within the shadows, illuminating a terrible truth Jessica never wanted to see. What had she awakened? In a place where hope and horror intertwined, where souls were trapped eternally. What dreadful discoveries awaited her in the darkness that loomed ahead? Jessica felt herself falling, not through space, but into a chilling void of despair. The shadows clung to her like a thick shroud, smothering her screams before they could escape her lips. The air was heavy, thick with dread, wrapping around her throat as she fought to breathe. She could feel something sinister lurking just out of sight, 1,000 eyes watching her with insatiable curiosity. "Mom!" Lizzie's voice echoed somewhere far away, like a distant bell tolling. Each ringing cry sliced through the oppressive darkness, but the shadows seemed to muffle her pleas, distorting them into cruel laughter. Jessica clawed at the air, desperate to pull herself free, yet every movement only dragged her deeper into the cold embrace of the unknown. Before she could regain her footing, everything shifted. The ground beneath her turned to mere vapors, swirling and twisting, sparking memories she couldn't comprehend. Faces grew out of the gloom, twisted, anguished, their mouths moving silently, bearing testament to wretched tales of suffering. A shiver raced down her spine as she recognized one face, a young girl with wide eyes filled with terror, her silent scream echoing in Jessica's mind. A sudden snapping sound broke through the haze. The chains. They rattled above her, the curtains of darkness parting briefly, revealing a fragment of history tainted with violence and rage. Jessica glimpsed heavy iron bars overhead, chained to walls stained with time. "What is this place?" she gasped, her heart hammering against her ribcage. "Mom!" It was just a whisper now, but Jessica felt that familiar tugging at her heart. "Stay away from them." The warning cut through the chaos, piercing through her confusion like a blade. But stay away from whom? The shadows thickened for a moment, and suddenly a shadowy figure loomed up, towering above her. Its eyes were hollow and dark, empty voids that seemed to gulp down the light. Jessica felt an instinctual dread creep into her senses, a primal call to flee. But flight was no longer an option. The beast lunged, a crackle of energy zipping through the air, and in that instant, everything froze. Jessica found herself face to face with the entity, a twisted imitation of humanity that pulsated with malice. It raised a hand, grotesque and elongated, fingers curling like talons, and for a heartbeat, they both stared into each other's depths. Then, without warning, the creature let out a shriek that echoed through the cell, reverberating off the walls. A sound filled with rage, sorrow, and a hunger that felt ancient, a cry for release. Jessica stumbled back, her heart racing, and as if all at once the shadows began to coil towards her, drawing in all the despair that had lingered here for years. The darkness morphed, taking shape again, and the ages-old whispers returned, wrapping around her brain like barbed wire. "Join us," they chanted with chilling harmonies. "Take your place among the forgotten." With every ounce of strength left, Jessica screamed, "No!" The word burst forth, a defiance drenched in desperate will. And with that scream, cracks began to form in the oppressive blackness. Splinters of light danced through the air, illuminating fragments of the walls around her, revealing more faces, more horrors etched into the very fabric of the prison. "For Lizzie!" she shouted, willpower surging through her veins. "She wouldn't die here. Not like this." As the shadows recoiled and murky silhouettes twisted into pained faces, Jessica charged towards another swirl of light pulsating in the chaos ahead. She felt a surge of warmth, a flicker of possibility, and for the first time, hope entwined with fear. But just as she reached it, a hand cold and wet grabbed her wrist, forcing her to a halt. "Leave. Don't look back." Lizzie's voice rang out, clear and relentless, snapping through the dread. Jessica felt her thoughts shatter. "I won't abandon you." The grip tightened, cold as ice, sending a shockwave of terror through her body. What would she do now, tethered between the realms of freedom and darkness? As the chilling whispers grew louder, suffocating her cries, the light flickered one last time. Then, it vanished as everything succumbed to the darkness once more. The suffocating absence left her gasping. What would she have to sacrifice to save her daughter? Would the chains truly claim them both? And as the shadows thickened, a new presence stirred, promising her a sinister choice. Would she risk everything to confront the nightmares, or would the curse continue to bind them? What horrors lay in wait for Jessica, and would she uncover the ultimate truth lurking at the heart of this nightmare? Jessica's breath faltered, panic clawing at her throat. The shadows pressed in, a suffocating blanket of despair. She pressed her eyes shut, desperately clinging to the faint warmth of hope that had flickered just moments ago. Would any of this truly matter if she couldn't save Lizzie? Mom. The voice was growing distant, each frantic call a stark reminder of her daughter's plight. Please, you have to. A violent jolt surged through Jessica's wrist, dragging her back. The dark figure loomed closer, its breath a rancid whisper that slithered over her skin. Her pulse roared in her ears, a symphony of terror drowning out everything else. Come and join them. The creature's voice was a gnarled thing, rasping and malicious. Jessica fought against the icy grip. Get away from me. It was a futile cry, the sound swallowed by the void. But defiance ignited a fire within her. Rage coursed through her veins, igniting her will to fight. In a surge of desperation, she twisted her wrist, trying to break free. And just like that, the shadows buckled under the force of her defiance. Blinding light erupted around her, a sudden ambush against the darkness. The figure howled, shrieking as the brilliance cut through its form like a knife. The light cast jagged shadows that danced wildly in the dimness, revealing more horrors that had been obscured. Jessica stumbled forward, propelled by instinct and a fierce desire to reach Lizzie. Each step felt like traversing through a nightmare, shadows snapping at her heels, angry murmurs echoing in her brain. Leave us. The voices hissed, rising in unison. She's ours. Jessica's heart raced at the sight of her own helplessness. Feeling like prey caught in a trap, she forced herself to keep moving, to fight against whatever this malevolence had in store. Lizzie. She called out, the name resonating with fierce hope, a lifeline thrown into the abyss. Ahead, a shimmer of light beckoned her, a portal, a way out. As she dashed toward it, fear thundered in her chest. What if this was just another deception? Then she saw it, a flash of movement. Lizzie, her daughter, was there, trembling, her features twisted in horror. But Jessica's heart soared. She was close. Mom. Lizzie's eyes widened, tears spilling down her cheeks. Help me. The shadows howled in anger, a cacophony of rage rippling through the darkness. Tendrils of black reached toward Lizzie, snaking around her like a wicked serpent. The cold fingers pulled tighter, and Jessica's heart plummeted. No. Get away from her. The ferocity of her scream pierced the air, summoning a strength she didn't know she possessed. A blinding light erupted around her, spreading in every direction, forcing the shadows back, if only for a moment. Jessica plunged forward, her will ignited, and the light enveloped her as she broke through the last barrier. She reached for Lizzie, her fingers brushing against her daughter's arm. I've got you. But as their hands connected, the darkness lashed out viciously. The air crackled with electricity, overpowering dread swirling like a storm. Suddenly, an ear-splitting shriek ruptured the silence as the darkness writhed, retaliating against the bond they had just forged. It was a horrific sound, brimming with desperation and anger. Energies collided, light and dark waging war around them. Jessica felt herself being pulled in two directions, as if she existed on the precipice between this world and the next. Would they survive this confrontation? Could the light vanquish the nightmare? In that agonizing moment, Lizzie looked up, her eyes wide and desperate. Mom, what if this isn't what we think? The darkness roared, the indecipherable whispers ominous, wrapping around them like barbed wire, tightening with each heartbeat. The choice hung in the air like a storm cloud, and Jessica understood it was one that would define their fates. Together, Jessica yelled, clinging to hope. We must face it together. But was that enough? As the shadows surged forward, a sinister tendril wrapped around them tighter, igniting the air with a bone-chilling cold. A choice loomed, one that could shatter everything they loved. Either they would face the beast, or become part of the forgotten. With every ounce of resolve, she pulled Lizzie closer, preparing to confront their fate, unsure of what waited for them on the other side of the darkness. What price would they pay to escape? And were they truly ready to uncover the horrors that awaited them? Jessica could feel the icy tendrils clinging to her as if they were alive, pulling her and Lizzie deeper into the maw of darkness. She gritted her teeth, refusing to succumb to the fear that would have her paralyzed. The bond between mother and daughter flared with a desperate energy, a flickering spark fighting against the night. "Hold on tight," she shouted, though fear twisted her voice into something less than confident, more like a plea. Bright energy surged around them as they clung to one another. It illuminated the dark landscape filled with the grotesque, shadowy figures grasping at them, their faces a collage of torment and rage. The foul stench of decay filled Jessica's nostrils, almost suffocating. A surge of anger coursed through her veins, shifting from fear to indignation. "You will not take her!" Jessica roared, her voice echoing, bouncing off the unyielding shadows. An electric charge raced between them, sending shockwaves of radiant light outward, illuminating the void momentarily. Just for a breath, Jessica could see them clearly, the faces of those she had only glimpsed before. The lost souls, frozen in terror, their eyes dark and pleading. But the moment passed. The shadows twisted, swirling faster, gathering strength. "She's ours!" They screeched again, their voices an unholy chorus of despair, merging like the maddened cries of the tormented. Then Lizzie's grip slipped a fraction. Jessica's heart dropped low. She yanked Lizzie back, her breath coming in frantic gasps. "I want to let go." It was a promise laden with desperation. Behind them, the darkness surged, its shape evolving into something larger, its grip tightening around their ankles. The shadows began to pulse like breaths of some great beast, drawing near. Chaos erupted as the flickering light waged a violent war against the oncoming tide. The shadows lunged, the air felt thick, wrapping around Jessica like a vice. "Mom!" Lizzie cried, and Jessica locked eyes with her, searching for reassurance in the storm of fear. "We need to know. No more talking. Just trust me." Every nerve in Jessica screamed against the engulfing darkness. She could not back down now. With a sudden surge of energy, she pulled Lizzie close, wrapping her arms around her, ready to take on whatever awaited them. The swirling shadows howled around them as the light shimmered. Jessica felt it, a powerful force igniting between their bodies. "We can fight them," she insisted, her voice steady despite the terror dripping around them. But even as she spoke, the darkness roared back, ripping the air with a sound that felt like nails on a chalkboard, heavy and discordant. "You can't defeat us." A vision flickered before Jessica's eyes, a glimpse of memories, intertwined with the madness of this dark realm. She saw her life, every financial strain, every argument, every moment she sacrificed for Lizzie. It all connected. The ridiculous things that bound them now felt like anchors, pulling them into a brighter tomorrow. "Look at me, Lizzie. We will break this." As if in response to her words, the shadows flickered again, growing fainter for a breath. Did she see an exit? The portal, barely visible, just a glimmer. Was it real? The earth shook beneath them, urging Jessica to choose a moment to flee or to fight. Just as the oppressive shadow closed in, forcing a choice, Jessica felt Lizzie's small hand slide into hers again, stronger this time. "Together!" Lizzie echoed, heart resolute. When the shadows closed in anew, Jessica unleashed a primal scream, fueled by pure fury and love. Light exploded around them, a blinding beacon in the abyss. Then, silence fell. An oppressive hush swallowed the chaos. And in that eerie calm, a new sound emerged. Soft laughter echoed like broken glass. "What have you done?" A chilling whisper taunted, curling around them like smoke. The tendrils shook as a form materialized, the monster, larger than life, its face a swirling mass of nightmares. Jessica glanced at Lizzie, dread pooling in her stomach. They had awakened something, and it was angry. "Mom, what now?" The darkness shrieked as reality warped around them, the world dissolving into chaos once more. Jessica felt a tremor run down her spine. The battle had just begun, and the true horror lurked just beyond. Were they ready to learn the secrets this monstrous darkness held? Would they pay the ultimate price to escape? The laughter slithered through the air, sharp and cruel. It echoed, distorting the boundaries of their reality. Jessica's heart hammered in her chest, the sound skimming dread against the walls of her mind. She glanced around, desperate for any sign of salvation, but the shadows deepened, suffocating her hopes. "Mom," Lizzie whispered, her voice small, quaking with fear. "I feel something. It's so cold." Jessica's stomach twisted at the fear in her daughter's eyes. The tendrils flickered, tightening around them, pulsing with a sinister rhythm. "Stay close," Jessica urged, feeling her own grip falter as the monster shifted, its image warping into a grotesque parody of humanity. Limbs elongated, faces twisting in agony, their mouths hanging open in silent screams. Jessica could hardly breathe, the weight of oppressive despair pressing down on her. Delicious fear. The voice that slinked from the shadows was both a growl and a hiss, entwining itself with her thoughts. "It's what fuels us. What feeds the darkness." "No. You won't take her," Jessica shouted, desperation mingling with determination as she tightened her hold on Lizzie. She wouldn't let that thing touch her daughter. The monster surged forward, its form swirling like a black vortex. With each pulse, the shadows enveloped them tighter, clawing at her skin, stealing the warmth from her body. A flicker of doubt ignited in Jessica's heart, threatening to extinguish everything they had fought for. But then she remembered the flicker of love, the bond that had burned bright in the depths of their darkest hour. "Use it!" Jessica yelled, her voice slicing through the air like a dagger. "Feel our love. Draw strength from it." With each word, she summoned their connection, willing the light to bloom brighter between them. A shimmer sparked to life, pushing back against the encroaching shadows that clawed at their resolve. The monster howled, an unearthly sound filled with fury. "You dare challenge me? This place is mine. You suffer here, just as I have." Jessica felt the shadows recoil, the air vibrating with their rage. "No. We will not suffer," she screamed, every ounce of her being ignited with ferocity. The luminous energy radiated outward, violently fracturing the darkness. Lizzie's eyes widened, and she mirrored her mother's defiance, summoning her own inner light. "We are stronger than you." Her small voice rang with innocent conviction, but it pierced through the smothering gloom like a beacon. For a brief moment, the shadows hesitated, and the monster lurched, twisted by surging anger and fear. Jessica seized this moment, ready to fight back. "Together, Lizzie. Let them feel our love." They joined their hands again, pulsing light spiraled around them, radiant and wild, striking against the hungry abyss. The figures in the shadows shrieked as the darkness peeled back, revealing glimpses of the tortured souls trapped within. "Help us!" they cried out in a chorus of anguish, their eyes wide and desperate. Jessica's heart twisted. They were not just fighting for their lives but for those they might save. We can do this," she screamed, pushing back her own trepidation. The monster convulsed, its features becoming more grotesque with each flicker of their light. "You will regret this," it snarled, fury resonating through the air. But despair tightened around Jessica's heart again as she sensed something shifting. A different kind of darkness began to thrum beneath the surface, aching and electric. It felt familiar, yet alien, a new horror. "Mom, what is that?" Lizzie's voice trembled, echoing her mother's fears. Jessica's breath caught as she saw the shadows twisting, morphing into a new, deeper shape. It was not just a monster, it was something darker, something ancient lurking beyond their comprehension. "What is happening?" she gasped, struggling to hold on to their light as the shadows pooled and expanded. The darkness laughed again, inviting and sinister. "You think you know fear? This is only the beginning. What new terror awaited them?" Jessica realized with horror that they had not yet faced the true beast of this place. And the cost of illumination could be far greater than she had ever imagined. "Stay close, Lizzie," she shouted, the bond between them vibrating with every passing moment. But deep within, beneath the flickering light, something was stirring. Was it the monster or something more sinister? Jessica fought to still her racing heart, knowing that whatever awaited them next would demand the greatest sacrifice of all. The darkness twisted with a newfound intensity, thrumming against the walls like a prelude to anguish. Jessica's breath quickened, and a cold sweat prickled at her skin. What was this new horror? Lizzie clutched her mother's hand tighter, the warmth of their connection a fragile lifeline against the looming void. "Mom, it's getting worse," Lizzie whimpered, her voice threadbare. Threads of fear clawed at Jessica's insides, squeezing her heart mercilessly. "I can feel it, like it's watching us." And it was. The air thickened, charged with a malevolence she could almost taste. Shadows writhed around them like serpents, whispering secrets of despair. Each murmur sent chills down her spine, echoes of the lost souls who had dared to challenge this darkness before. "What do we do?" Lizzie's eyes glistened with tears. Jessica shot her a determined glance, unwilling to let her daughter witness her fear take form. "Remember the light, Lizzie. It's our shield." She squeezed her daughter's hand, drawing strength from their bond. The crackling luminescence pulsed around them, but as the deeper shadow coiled tighter, its chilling embrace seeped through the cracks. The monster inched closer, revealing a faceless visage dripping with sorrow. "You cannot outrun your fate," it hissed, the voice slithering through the air like ice. "Every choice you make brings you closer to suffering." Jessica felt her resolve waver. What kind of choice was she truly making? They were fighting for survival, but the darkness promised knowledge, power. Insidious temptation twinkled in its empty eyes. "Focus," she urged, but inside she could feel the tendrils of doubt slipping through the cracks of her confidence. She could see the tortured souls trapped within the shadows, clawing for release. Could she save them all? Or would her own desperate fight doom them to eternal suffering? "Mom." Lizzie's voice broke through her thoughts, shaky but clear. "What if we can't do this? What if we're not strong enough?" The words hung heavy in the air. Jessica's heart plummeted as she faced the truth. What if their love wasn't enough? The monster laughed, a cruel cackle echoing around them. "Oh, how precious!" It chortled, the sound seeping through every crevice. "You're nothing without your naive hope. Love won't save you now." Each word cut deeper, pulling at the seams of her faith. But in the heart of despair, an ember sparked within Jessica, a flicker of rage ignited from the core of her being. She flooded Lizzie's grip with confidence, clenching her fists. "Don't listen. Love is our strength. We are not powerless." The borders of the shadows trembled, shifting like the tide at a distant shore. With newfound fury, Jessica summoned their shared light. It brightened, fierce and vivid, pushing against the creeping darkness with a relentless force. But in that very act of defiance, the ground beneath them began to tremor. The shadows recoiled, forming a vortex, twisting violently as if to retaliate against their defiance. "Fools! You will pay dearly for that mistake." The atmosphere erupted in a cacophony of screams and whispers as the lost souls surged forward one last time, their faces merging with the shadows. Jessica and Lizzie were at the center of a storm, light against darkness and desperation against despair. And suddenly, Jessica spotted movement in the chaos. A figure, clearer than the others, reached out. A man or a woman? She couldn't tell. "Help us!" Their voice echoed, a desperate plea swallowed by the noise. "Mom, who is that?" Lizzie asked, her small voice straining beneath the weight of dread. "I don't know." Jessica shouted back, panic creeping back into her throat. "But we have to keep fighting." With that determination, she pulled Lizzie closer, preparing to bolster their light against the encroaching shadows. But as they did, the figure stepped forth, its features revealing a familiar face, one that sent a shockwave of recognition through Jessica's soul. "Mom, it can't be," Lizzie gasped, clinging tighter as the shadows relented momentarily. The air froze around them, dread wrapping like a vice. "You have to choose, Jessica." "What choice?" The light brightened, flickering. Was this ally a savior or a lure into further darkness? Time slowed as dread settled heavily on their shoulders. Can they rescue the lost soul, or will this connection pull them into a vortex they can't escape? The figure stepped closer, its features sharpening into a visage that filled Jessica with both hope and horror. It was her sister, Sarah, long thought lost to the darkness. "Help me!" Sarah cried, her voice trembling, weighted with anguish. The shadows writhed behind her, eager to reclaim what they had once grasped. "Jessica, don't trust it." Lizzie's voice was frantic as she tightened her grip. "What if it's a trick?" Sarah's eyes glimmered with urgency. "I'm not your enemy. I got trapped here, but I know how to end this. You have to believe me." The darkness bubbled around them, angry and alive. Jessica could feel its cold breath, pulling at her, enticing her with secrets. The pain and betrayal in Sarah's eyes clawed at her heart. Could this be genuine? Or was it yet another deception? As Jessica fought with her thoughts, the ground shook violently, a warning rumble that resonated through her bones. Shadows surged forward, their whispers growing louder, punctuated by a cacophony of anguished cries. "Join us! Join us!" echoed within her mind like a twisted melody sung by lost souls. They hungered for warmth, for connection, for anything to stave off their eternal loneliness. "Mom! Don't listen to them!" Lizzie pleaded. Jessica closed her eyes, trying to suppress the chaos inside her head. The only thing that grounded her was Lizzie's presence. "You have to trust me," she implored her daughter, squeezing her hand even tighter. "Choose, Jessica. This is your moment." Now, Sarah's voice pierced through the haze, stronger, more insistent. "If you take my hand, we can escape together. We can save everyone." The temptation swelled like a tidal wave as Jessica opened her eyes. Images of a happy childhood flickered before her, Sarah laughing, the two of them dancing in the sunshine, sharing secrets. But next came the memories of despair, of losing Sarah to the same darkness that threatened them now. The shadows inched closer, their grotesque forms flickering like a fever dream. Cold terror pooled in her stomach. How could she risk Lizzie's safety for a sister she hadn't even seen in years? "Please, Jessica." Sarah's eyes glimmered with desperate hope, just human enough to bypass Jessica's guards. "We're stronger together. I can feel the way out." But the shadows hissed and swirled. "Foolish girl." They taunted, the voices weaving together like tendrils of smoke. "Every choice has a price. Are you willing to sacrifice your child for another? Will you abandon her to serve your lost love?" The questions hollowed Jessica's chest, chipping away at her resolve. The very air smelled of rot and despair, suffocating her spirit. Could Sarah be telling the truth, or was this a mere illusion crafted to seal their fates inside the darkness? "Mom, please. Don't do it," Lizzie cried, terror-stricken. "Time is running out." Sarah's voice broke, her demeanor shifting under the weight of desperation. "You have to decide." The room shook violently, shadows reaching, twisting into claws and fangs that threatened to yank them into eternal night. Jessica's heart raced, an internal war raging. She opened her mouth, ready to shout a decision, but at that moment, the shadows lunged, claws scraping against her skin. The light flickered, the vibrancy waning, leaving behind a chilling darkness that suffocated her. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted from Lizzie's grasp, the light leaping out like a firework, casting the shadows back momentarily. In that cruel split second, Jessica glanced at her sister, her flickering form showing cracks of darkness creeping in. In her frantic gaze, she caught a glimpse of the truth hidden in the depths. What was real? What was saved or lost? Mom! Lizzie's scream pierced through, and Jessica found herself staring into her daughter's terrified eyes. Hold on, Lizzie. But as she steeled herself, Jessica wondered, would this bond survive, or was their moment of crucible just beginning? Make your choice. The monster roared, and the shadows heightened their swirling fury, ready to consume them whole. Was it Lizzie or Sarah? Could they escape? As the darkness roared, she felt the last flickering embers of hope slip away, setting the stage for one final decision. And in that instant, the truth of her choice loomed, chillingly unresolved. The howling of the shadows filled the air, a tumultuous choir of hunger and despair. Jessica felt the walls of the dark prison close in around her as the pressure of her choice loomed heavy. Memories of laughter, pain, and fleeting moments of joy flashed through her mind. But the most overpowering was the love she shared with Lizzie, radiating warmth in the pervading cold. Jessica. Choose. Sarah screamed as the shadows clawed closer, their anger palpable in the air like a storm about to break. The choice felt impossible. Yet in that mess of chaos, clarity began to emerge. No! Jessica yelled, resentment and fury bubbling to the surface. I refuse to let you take any more. Her resolve ignited, she turned her gaze to Lizzie, who stood firm amidst the darkness. Together, sweetheart. We're stronger together. In an impulse, she reached for Sarah, instincts raging within her that screamed to save her sister. But at that moment, the darkness pulsed violently around her, shadows fuming as they sensed her wavering heart. The cacophony rose to a tumult, a malicious chant swimming through Jessica's mind, weak. Foolish. You'll suffer forever. Tears streamed down Lizzie's cheeks, her little fists balled. Mom! You can't trust her. She cried, a mixture of anger and fear lacing her voice. You'll get lost. In that moment of fear, Jessica felt Lizzie's hand gripping hers tightly, grounding her, dispelling the shadow's promises of power. There's no way you can save both, the monster hissed, its form flickering in and out of existence, taunting her with the reality of her situation. But she didn't care anymore. I know what you've taken from me, what you want. Jessica bellowed into the dark. And I refuse to let it happen again. With a final burst of courage, she turned to Lizzie, pulling her closer. We will fight. No matter the cost. The light ignited around them, a fierce wave of warmth and love, pushing against the encroaching darkness. Together, they forged a bridge, a flickering beacon of hope forged in light. The shadows screeched, reluctant to retreat from the brightness. Their forms split apart, recoiling in pain as the luminous warmth grew, pulsing with their collective love. No! We will feast on your despair. The darkness roared, but the tide was turning. Feel the love, Lizzie. Jessica urged, tears mingling with the glow. Let it flow through us. Lizzie squeezed her hand tighter, determination flashing in her eyes. Together. She echoed. With one last surge, they took a step forward into the light. The brightness exploded, enveloping them in a radiance that split the darkness from within. Then, suddenly, everything fell silent. The chaotic whispers faded, the shadows dissipated into nothingness, leaving behind an overwhelming stillness. Jessica blinked, taking in her surroundings. They stood outside the prison, the walls crumbled away like dust in the wind. The moon hung high above, illuminating the night sky, casting gentle, calming light over everything, washing away the remnants of the nightmare. Mom? Lizzie's voice was small, filled with the lingering weight of fear. Jessica knelt, brushing away tears streaked across her daughter's cheeks. We did it, she whispered, disbelief flooding her heart. As they held each other tightly, Jessica felt the warmth repair the cracks of despair that once threatened to consume them. No, they weren't unscathed, but they had emerged victorious from the depths of darkness. And when Jessica turned back to where the jail had once loomed, only the lingering traces of its cursed past remained. She could scarcely believe it. They had faced a nightmare together and had found their way back to the light. "Let us go home," Jessica whispered, their strength woven in a beautiful tapestry of love. In the comforting embrace of the world outside, warmth enveloped them, the anger of 1,000 lost souls dissipating into nothing more than a chilling memory. As they walked hand in hand, Jessica vowed to teach Lizzie about the courage it takes to face fears, to never waver, and to always believe in the light no matter how dark the shadows might be. Tonight wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. Jessica and Lizzie stepped into the glow of dawn, ready for whatever came next. Now, everyone listening, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button right this second to help feed the algorithm. I want to hear from you, so flood that comment section with your reactions, thoughts, and theories about this gripping conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience the incredible outcome of this journey. Let us keep our community growing strong.